Welcome back to Texas History. This is Lecture 11. Hopefully you are watching this on April 8th, which is a Wednesday. What we're going to do in today's lecture is we're going to go over your Chapter 19 test with several instructions for your test boost, and then we'll finish with the lesson, which will start on page 528, and we'll be starting Chapter 21, The Age of Oil. Now, I'm going to go through this quickly. Hopefully you would have put true for this. And moving to the next section. When Spain controlled Texas, friars raised cattle for food. This was in your notes, almost a specific sentence. That is true. According to your notes, rancheros were ranchers. That is true. One Spanish ranching tradition was the branding of cattle to show ownership. That's true. Because prices for cattle were low in Texas, ranchers began cattle drives out of state. That's true. The Chisholm Trail ended in Dodge City. That is false. The Goodnight Loving Trail ended in Abilene, Kansas. That is false. The Western Trail ended in Dodge City, Kansas. That is true. The life of the cowboy was exhausting and dangerous. That's true. Barbed wire was invented to keep cattle in or out. That is true. Due to the lack of rain, farmers in East Texas had to find creative ways to successfully grow their crops. That is false. East Texas receives many inches of rain every year. We said in your notes that it was farmers in West Texas who had to find creative ways to grow crops due to the lack of rain. So that is false. Tenant farmers and sharecroppers easily moved up the social economic ladder. That is false. Cotton was considered to be a good crop to grow in West Texas. That's true. Cattle drives were seasonal. And the owners of the King Ranch received 3 million acres in exchange for money to build the new capital in Austin. That is false. That was the XIT Ranch. Then moving to multiple choice. Which town was the major destination of cattle drives for many years? Abilene. That was on, I believe, a homework question that might have even been a quiz question. On a cattle drive, which position was in charge? That was the trail boss. Which position took care of the horses? That was the wrangler. Which of the following normally rode in the back of the herd? The least experienced. It was called a stampede when cattle were spooked and began running in one direction. The refrigerated railroad car shortened the length of cattle drives. The first rancher to fence his land, that would be Richard King. According to your notes, what is the biggest ranch in Texas? That's the XIT Ranch. According to your notes, which wild animal was hard, sure-footed, and tough? Should be hardy there, making it an ideal animal to round up cattle. That was the Mustang. Who invented barbed wire? That was Joseph Glidden. What term in your notes is defined as a serious crime? That's a felony. An approach to farming that uses careful plowing to keep loose soil on top. That's a dry farming. Type of horse that descended from Spanish horses, Mustang. Texas ranchers raised sheep, mainly for their wool. According to your reading, what crime was eventually ruled to be a felony in the state of Texas? That's fence cutting. What is it called when a field is left unplanted for one or more growing seasons? It's fallow. Which crop was considered to be the most important crop? That is cotton. And which type of laborer provided labor in exchange for seeds, tools, living quarters, and food? He only received half of his crops. It's a sharecropper, while the tenant farmer would provide labor, seeds, and tools in exchange for the land to work on. Now, I want you to understand that I'm not going to do this anymore, where I go through all of the questions. And the reason being is because once you click submit, there is an option here that says view score. You need to click on view score because what you're able to do is see all of the questions and your grade up here at the top. So you can see your grade and you can see all the questions that you got right or wrong. Now, what I just did, that's what this does. Okay, so what you need to do after every test you finish, you need to look at the questions you got right or wrong. Now, the test boost, okay, the test boost is not for you to it's not like a homework assignment. You don't just click through answers and then just get half credit. That's me giving you points for no reason. Okay, I want you to earn your half credit. Okay, if I think that people are beginning to take advantage of the test boost, then I'm only going to accept test boosts in which people got the answers all correct. I want you to look at this here. For example, whenever I was checking through your test boosts, the question where it was saying due to the lack of rain, farmers in East Texas had to be creative to successfully grow their crops. There were still 23 people that put true. So more people got this one wrong again than got it right. So I want you to understand, if I believe that people are just clicking answers just to complete a test boost and get half credit, then I will only give half credit to those who get the entire test boost correct. All right, so make sure that you're putting in the time and effort, because I don't believe in just giving away points, no matter if we're online learning or not, okay? So make sure that you're taking the time to do things correctly with your test boost. All right, so let's pick up with your notes. Chapter 21, Oil in a New Century here. The Age of Oil. This is on page 528. The Age of Oil. Now, Texas, according to your textbook, is the nation's leading oil-producing state. But we weren't the first state to start drilling for oil. In fact, in the mid to late 1800s, Ohio was the nation's leading oil producer. Pennsylvania was where the first oil well was dug. And you had refineries that were in charge of taking this oil and developing it into kerosene, or later on even gasoline. So oil production was going full-fledged before Texas really jumped on board. But the thing is, it's not that Texans did not know that oil didn't exist. In fact, Spanish explorers had discovered oil when they first set foot in North America. They just didn't know what it could be used for necessarily. But number two, Lynn T. Barrett drilled the first oil well in Texas in Oil Springs. And in 1894, a company found oil near Corsicana. This was the first big oil find in Texas because the Corsicana field produced 840,000 barrels of oil a year. Now, barrels is the form of measurement used to measure how much oil is being produced. So 1 barrel is equal to 42 gallons. Okay, so if you want to do the math real quick, you can pause this. 840,000 times 42. That's how many gallons of oil were produced in 1 year from the Corsicana field. This was very successful and launched what we call the Age of Oil in Texas, and that was due to the Corsicana field. But oil drilling reached a new height, especially oil production, in 1901 in Beaumont. On January 10th, and here I'm going to move this real quick so you can see what this says. On January 10th, 1901, there was an oil derrick, which is this wooden structure you see here that allows the pipe. It holds the pipe and allows it to drill down into the ground, and oil would spew up at the top. There was a derrick called Spindletop. This was the well, and Spindletop proved to be a huge boom, an oil boom here. The company found oil because the pipe, as it says in your textbook, the drilling pipe suddenly shot out of the ground into the air, followed by mud, gas, and oil. And a stream of oil 100 feet high gushed for 9 days until crews were able to cap the well. So this oil derrick you see here, it's spewing oil out the top. So Spindletop, it was spewing about 100 feet into the air before they were able to cap it, meaning they were able to put a covering on top to keep it from just spewing. It spewed 100,000 barrels in 9 days. Imagine how sopping wet it was with oil around that well, but also imagine the scary things that come with that. All it takes is one spark to set that whole well on fire, which makes it very difficult to cap a well because you're having to, the only way you really stop that fire is by capping the well. It's very difficult whenever the well is on fire. But Spindletop proved to be very successful. Once they capped it, it was then putting out 75,000 barrels of oil a day. So that was Spindletop. Now, the success at Spindletop encouraged other investors to form oil companies. And so you see the formation of Texaco, Gulf, and Exxon during this time. But you also see towns called boom towns. Here's some pictures of boom towns here. Here's one specifically. You see all the tents that are up. These are oil workers who are living in this town temporarily during the oil boom. And so when oil was booming in a field, nearby towns boomed as well. And that's why we call these towns boom towns. It's because the population began to grow tremendously. So to create living spaces, hotels were quickly built, but boom towns weren't perfect living spaces. They were often dirty, lawless, and crowded, because really what you have there are people who are wanting to strike it rich, strike oil, but you also have people who are willing to do whatever it takes to get ahead. And so sometimes you don't have the best crowd that was living in the boom towns. You have oil leakages that polluted streams. Crime and disease were common. And so it was the Texas Rangers who were called in to restore law and order. And the negative thing about a boom town, and sadly for a lot of towns' economies, is that whenever the oil boom ended or oil production slowed down, all the people left, because what's there to keep them in that town? And so when the oil boom ended, the towns would shrink. Also, their economy would shrink. Okay, so that is it for today. We will pick up with the lumber industry booms on page 531 next week. There is no class or any type of assignments on Friday, nor will there be any class or assignments next Monday. And so I will look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. I hope that you have a great Easter weekend. Please remember that He, Jesus, has risen from the dead, giving us hope in a new life with Him forever and ever. I hope you have a great weekend, praying for your families and you to stay safe and healthy. I'll see you next time.